Hello, and welcome back to this video, this live stream. Today, I'm going to be here talking about, well, the book that I just published, and it's currently going to be a discussion. The book's called Christianity for All. It's a book that I published recently. It's basically a guide to a Christian life. Today, I'm going to be talking about my thoughts on this, about how I was writing the book, my ideas, my thoughts about the issue, and I would just talk briefly about how I worked on the book, how it kind of came to be, and then after that, I will then just discuss more about individual questions, individual Q&As, and that sounds like a good idea. Tonight, there is a Chelsea match. Like always, whenever there's Chelsea, I'm watching it. It's going to be at around midnight tonight for me, midnight, I think, midnight. It'll be really fun, see how it goes. Looking forward to watching the match. Hopefully we win. Important win against Manchester. We'll see how that goes. The Brown University Cups, really, because my mum went to Brown, so I have a lot of Brown University hardware and things like that. So, well, the plan is, I guess, like always, is to indeed just go over the individual points in the stream, just talk about the individual parts of the things. I haven't planned the stream that much. It was actually planned for the morning today, but I decided to do it tonight because, well, I think it's better for your time zones, because there's people in America, there's people in UK, there's people in Hong Kong, literally everywhere. So essentially the plan is to do it at night a bit more. So it's going to be at like 9 p.m. around this time at night, because then the people in the UK could also watch it. Then the people in the US could watch it. It'll be the morning for you there, 8 a.m. there at EST. So we'll see how that goes. And let's get into the book. So let's just talk about my general thoughts about what made me want to write this book, because, you know, writing a book is quite a big thing. I mean, I would say that I do enjoy writing a lot, so it's probably not as big a thing as most people think it is. I'm going to just take off my headphones right now. I'm on my headphones a lot these days, but good to have my hair being shown a bit more, I guess. It's getting quite hot in my room, actually. I might open the window, but that might disturb some other people outside, but it's fine. My hair is an absolute mess also. So open the window and open the blinds, because that will let the wind come in. Ah, yes. Yep, got the blinds up. Everything's all well and good to go. So essentially the plan is that we're going to be discussing how my hair is an absolute mess. I think I should put my headphones back on. but I guess essentially let's start off with discussing why I wrote the book. And I kind of wrote the book because, okay, I'm really worried about waking people up or messing things up. So, well, I guess the reason why I wrote the book is essentially because I wanted to, or I was interested in providing a guide to Christians, something that I never had when I started being a Christian, because essentially I was thinking, right, when I was writing this book, I was like, well, what can I work on? Like, what are the interesting topics that you can discuss as a Christian? Or well, what are the things that you're trying to focus on? And well, I've always thought that when you're as a Christian, or when you're growing up as a Christian, sorry, this hand thing, I'm turning on the aircon right now. It's absolutely boiling in my room. But essentially, when I was growing up as a Christian, like I was never really a really good Christian, I'll have to say. It wasn't until, why is it detecting it? Okay, hopefully this works. Yep, that should work. So essentially, when I was growing up as a Christian, I never really knew how to be a good Christian, I guess, if that's the best way to put it. I never knew how to be a good Christian. I had my doubts. But the doubts about faith wasn't the real main issue, right? The existence of God was never a big question for me. The real question was, well, how do you live out Christianity? Well, how are you a good Christian? What do you do? And I never really understood this, or understood how to be a good Christian, and until very later in my life. I grew up in a Christian family my entire life for some background, but I would never say that I was any good Christian until really far into my life. I guess it's around when did I become a Christian? It was around 2-3 years ago where I got baptized. But even then, I would say that I wasn't really good at Christian. I knew the concepts and scripture. I grew up in church, so of course, growing up in church, you know quite a lot of scripture, right? But at the same time, I never applied it to my life, or even attempted to try to understand what it meant. And that was a very big problem to me, because it's one thing calling yourself a Christian, but there's another thing living it. And when you don't live as a Christian and you call yourself a Christian, what happens very soon is that you then have the idea that you're not really believing in God, or you're misrepresenting Christ to other people. And that was something that I dare say I was doing quite a lot in my past when I said I was a Christian, but I never really acted as a Christian. And that was a major worry for me. And that got me thinking, right? Like what could I have, or what would I have, or what could I have done in order to really to help people avoid what I was doing with my life, or what went wrong with me. And how could I have avoided wasting so much time in my life, or wasting that big period of time in my life, right? Like, what could have I done to improve this situation? And the answer, which then came quite clear, is that the YouTube channel is one thing, but a book is something else. And of course, I started writing the book before I did the entire YouTube thing. But then I essentially thought, maybe providing a guide of how to be a better Christian will be most important, or will be very important for the everyday Christian, right? The everyday believer. And that's essentially what I did, or what I was aiming to do with this book. And that's why the first part of my book is, indeed, as you can see, it's basically what does being a Christian mean? And I talk about what is false Christians and what is a real Christian. And what I mean by false and real Christians, I'm not saying, false Christians are those who are wolves in sheep clothing or anything like that. That's not the false Christian that I'm looking for in this book. The false Christian that I'm looking for in this book is actually the idea of the people like me when I was growing up as a Christian, right? I was a guy who's I call myself a Christian, but I don't act like a Christian. I say I'm a Christian, but at the same time, I don't really live life as a Christian, right? So that was kind of the problem that I was doing, or the trap that I was in right now. And essentially what that led me to really quickly was the fact that I just was wasting my life a lot. And that was a significant issue, right? Because that is indeed a very big problem when you're not sure about what you're doing and you're wasting your life on something. That's a very big problem, right? You're trying to do a good thing, you're trying to do a good job, but then you're just absolutely messing up. And I realized very quickly that I wasn't really intentionally messing up. I wasn't intentionally being a bad Christian. I genuinely just didn't know better. I genuinely didn't have a better idea of what I was doing, and I didn't realize how depraved I was until later in life, almost actually just a year ago, where I really realized that I better get my life on track. And when I said, let's better get my life on track, it was like, okay, start reading philosophy, reading the Bible, really focusing my life on God and really living the Bible, living the verses that I knew instead of just knowing the verses I knew. And that got me thinking, what is a false Christian? So I wrote it down. It's the idea of having a label which you don't truly know what it is. And that's basically a false Christian. And this idea of having a label that you fully don't understand is something repetitive, or something which constantly repeats itself in society these days. A lot of people know what they're working towards, right? They know what they're working, they know what they're doing, but at the same time, they unfortunately don't feel it, right? They fundamentally don't understand, or they don't realize what they're claiming to be, and as a result, lead a double life. And of course, most of us do lead double lives, but then the idea of a double life here is a really, really big separation between the idea of life of Christ and the separation with a life of humans. And that's one of the biggest separations you can indeed get in your life, right? And I was angry at people. I wasn't the most pleasant person to be around. I was arrogant, and seriously, my life was in quite a bad place. And not a bad place in the sense that, you're killing people, or you became a Nazi or something like that. Not like that, but I think that it's very easy to be in a bad place, or it's very easy to see yourself, or it's very easy to become a monster without you realizing it. And a monster doesn't just mean these fundamental ideas of genocide or torture or things like that. That's not what a monster is. What a monster is really, it grows from the inside. And deep down, I wasn't the most pleasant person, right? And that's got me thinking, okay, then, let me talk about the ideal Christian. Well, the ideal Christian is essentially what really is thought, well, what is the pure perfection, or what is the thing we want to work towards? And when I was starting to write this section, it was before I got into reading Dostoevsky, and as a result, I don't actually raise Dostoevsky at all in this book, nor do I raise Nietzsche or any of these more profound thinkers. And I think it was kind of God's plan for me not to have raised it, otherwise I would really have gone in way too much depth here and about Nietzsche and Dostoevsky, which isn't the best thing possible, right? And here's just because this book is essentially meant to be a guide, right? So the good thing about the ideal Christian, I don't want to be talking about saying, oh, this book's absolutely amazing or anything, but I'd like to say that the discussion of the ideal Christian is attempted to be as simple to understand as possible. Essentially, what I'm trying to say here is, well, we have the ideal Christian, then we have, well, then what is the ideal Christian? And Dostoevsky's term, the ideal Christian would be a Mushkin-like character. It would be like Alyosha. But no, I'm not going to study university at Brown. That's not the plan. The only reason I have a Brown cup is because my mother went to Brown, right? So that's why I have a lot of Brown merchandise. It's not because of any personal inclinations of me going to Brown University at all. It got nothing to do with that. So essentially, someone just hit me up with something on Discord, but I don't know where that came from. So, well, whatever about that. So essentially, we have, how do I call it? We basically have the ideal Christian, right? And where I basically go over the Beatitudes and get the Beatitudes, and from the Beatitudes demonstrate what the ideal Christian is. And I essentially say, well, I summarize at the back of the Beatitudes. I try to get a bit of a summary at the back of every single thing. Where's my list? My list is here, right? My summary of good or important things for being an ideal Christian is, well, you care for the weak, do not discriminate when it comes to who you're helping, embolden the poor in spirit, recognize your personal weakness, self-reflect, comfort the suffering. What did I say? Comfort? Okay, my English has gone absolutely horrible. It's 9 p.m. I shouldn't be this tired already, but submit to God, yet be brave in Christ. That's like facing persecution. Search for the truth and righteousness. Show mercy. Forgive others. Always pursue peace. Prioritize God first in your life, and love. And I think those are indeed the most important parts of an ideal Christian. Of course, if you want to have a more in-depth discussion about it, go check out the book. The link of that book is in the description below. If you have Kindle Unlimited, just go get it. It's for free there on Kindle Unlimited. But it's like, I think, around $6 or $7 for Kindle paperback, and it's around $3 for Kindle ebook. So basically, if you want to go check it out, just go check it out there. And have I read books by the atheist philosopher Jordan Howard Sobel? No, I haven't. Because, well, that's actually quite interesting, because I was actually going to read more about Christian philosophy and the existence of God, philosophy of religion kind of thing. That does God exist? But then something changed in my life. Like, instead of going towards reading the philosophy of religion things, I took a kind of a complete U-turn. Instead of going into the more common theist or the apologetics side, which is God exists, cosmological argument, ontological argument, these things. What I went into is actually Dostoevsky and Nietzsche and the existential problems, and I think that's really what I was working. And have I ever read the book Logic and Theism as written by? No, I haven't. I have to admit that my reading on the philosophy of religion, in the sense that the existence of God, is actually really poor, and that's kind of the fact. Like, I focus so much on I've been focusing so much on Dostoevsky and Nietzsche, and that I haven't focused too much on the arguments for the existence of God. I mean, I know like a few arguments, and I've heard of a lot of arguments, and I can defend most of them. But have you ever read the book by atheist philosopher Jordan Howard Sobel? Nope, I've never read anything by the Dr. Howard Sobel. Hope that helps. But essentially, most of the books I've read, as you can see in the shelf behind me, it should be there. How should I get my finger? There's Dostoevsky, Brothers Karamazov. That is Demons. That is 1984, George Orwell. That is Peckham's The Odyssey of Love. What are your thoughts, guys, on Islam? Well, I do this in wake of the Act 17 apologetics thing. I dare not talk anything about that discussion or anything like that. I'm currently in Hong Kong. But essentially what I think about Islam as well, and I dare say I haven't read the Quran yet, so I don't want to misrepresent Islam or anything, but I think it is fundamentally a very difficult religion, and and I wouldn't necessarily say it's completely wrong, because I do think there's some parts of truth in it, and I don't like it when people say, well, it's either completely true or completely false, because I do think that Islam does have quite a lot of good things in it. But the problem is that I think it gives too much power to man, if you got what I mean. And it's essentially saying, well, let's let man have the judgment. Let man have the proper judgment in life. And I think that's a very dangerous thing to do, because the true judgment, the true situation in life really shouldn't be let man judge. It really should be, well, let's let human judge, right? And I think that is indeed the most important thing. And that's the most important thing that we should work towards, right? And we should let God judge. And yeah, that's what I'm saying. We should let God judge, and we shouldn't let like Christianity or not. And what am I on about? We shouldn't let man judge. We should let humans judge. I'm just making sure that people watching this on the side can indeed check the, what do you call it? Check the videos, right? The video afterwards, like the live stream thing. Okay, I don't think I could do anything about it now. Whatever, I'll check it afterwards just to make. Okay, how would you rate your knowledge of philosophy of religion? So I'll answer more of these questions later in more depth. I'll probably answer this and just continue going on with the video or the discussion about my book. But at the end of the day, this is essentially a get to know me session. So I really don't mind what we discuss too much. I might do another more in-depth discussion about this later. But essentially, this is just a discussion about the book and things like that. But okay, I'll answer this question first. My mic's in an absolutely dreadful position. I got something to do right before this, but okay. So essentially, I would say that my knowledge of the philosophy of religion is more about the existentialist movement of the philosophy of religion. I wouldn't say I am philosophy of religion in the sense that like cosmological argument, aesthetic arguments, or these things. I wouldn't say I'm like that good in that. But if you say, well, let's talk about Dostoevsky, let's talk about Nietzsche, let's talk about meaning of life, let's talk about can meaning exist without God? Is the Übermensch a good result or a good explanation for atheism, or is that a good way to go to, or a good perspective to go to? I would say I'm quite knowledgeable in that sense of philosophy of religion, but less so of, okay, Kalam cosmological argument, teleological argument, fine-tuning argument. I know how to defend them, and I mean mostly the Kalam, because as you might know, I did do quite a lot of research into the infinity lately. But apart from the Kalam and maybe the historical case for the resurrection, which I do discuss in my book, surprisingly, I don't discuss the Kalam in too much depth or anything like that. But I would say that I do discuss the Kalam a bit in my book. I wouldn't say I go too far in depth into this book or this discussion. I just kind of talk about it a bit, talk about the historical case for the resurrection, which I think I know a bit better as well than most of the other arguments. But as I've said, I'm mostly into Dostoevsky and Nietzsche, and the other things aren't really my concern as of now. And I'm just getting through these other works. And I do plan to get back into philosophy of religion arguments for the existence of God later, but I don't think it's a predominant problem or the predominant thing that I'm focusing on right now. And would you say I'm Joe Smith smart? I don't think I'm too smart, to be honest, if it comes to philosophy wise. I mean, I work hard, I read a lot of books, think a lot, but I wouldn't say I'm extremely smart or anything like that. I haven't talked with Joe Schmidt. He seems like an absolutely phenomenal guy, but to be honest, I don't know. I don't like making these judgments, nor do I like thinking whether I'm smart or anything like that. Have you ever thought of debating? Depends on what the topic is. I mean, I do a bit of debate in college. I debate quite a few people about the existence of God. I can debate that. I do say I'm quite confident with my debating skills. I wouldn't say I'm too bad at debating. I wouldn't mind debating things. a structured debate is always better than a full-up discussion, because in a structured debate, it's very hard to get destroyed unless you're really unprepared. But then these things are like personal preference. Depends who I'm debating against. I wouldn't mind debating most people. You know, if someone challenged me, do you want to have a debate? I would have a debate, and I wouldn't mind like stuff. I do disagree with what you're saying regarding Islam. Let me know what you think about Islam, what you disagree with me with, or you want clarification and stuff like that. And just let me know. But basically, I'll continue going through this book. I think this is going to become a more of a question and answer, get to know the author kind of thing, which is essentially what you guys are probably here for. But I'll just go over the rest of the points I want to go through. After I discuss what it means to be a good Christian or the ideal Christian, well, then I talk about the challenges of being a Christian. That means including facing persecution, dealing with temptation. And a lot of this stuff is personal stuff, right? Like I'm going over my personal experience with suffering. I go over my personal experience with pain, with these problems, and I'm like, well, how can we solve these problems? What can we do? And that's essentially what I'm trying to work on with my book, and that's kind of what I'm trying to point towards. And that's the thing. That's kind of the thing that I'm helping, right? That's the kind of the thing that I'm thinking about with this book. Well, what's the most personal way to solve these problems? What would I have liked to do in my walk with Christ? And that's just kind of my personal thoughts. And then after that, my book kind of goes into a stop. Instead of going now about Christianity, I go into defending Christianity, and that's apologetic stuff. And as you might see the page count, I spend most of the time debating biblical morality instead of the existence of God. And the reason for that is because when I first started writing the book, I didn't think that the existence of God is very important for someone in their walk with Christ. And most of the time, I just wrote about biblical morality because that's always been something which is more important or more complicated or more difficult to defend when the entire society is calling you a bigot when you're defending Christian morality, right? So I focus most of my discussion on abortion, the gender phenomena, and homosexuality. I spend quite a lot of time discussing all three of these, and that's basically my book. I have made past live streams on abortion and gender identity if you want to check them out. And after that, I would say, and then after that, I basically go and talk about God's existence. But that's basically it of this book. I might do a review on Zach's channel at here in Apologetics, because a few people on his channel does want to do a review about it. So I'll happily talk to him about it if he wants to check it out. I know this stream's a bit of an unstructured stream to kind of get to know me a bit more, but essentially that's what it is. I wouldn't mind doing the same on Zach's channel. Basically, I always love going on Zach's channel. If you haven't checked his channel out, make sure you go check it out. It's called Here in Apologetics. Great channel, great guy. Make sure you go check it out. So let me close this banner. So basically, that's essentially the book for you. If you want to check out the book, learn more about how to be a good Christian, what's the ideal Christian, know more about me, personal experiences of mine are in the book, and also how to defend Christian morality, that's in the book as well. So basically, all of these things can be found in the book. It's basically a guide to Christianity. I dare say the arguments for the existence of God part is just a basic representation or a first part of the argument. And I'm not developing really in depth, because to develop any of these arguments I raise in depth has to go really, really long. And that's not the purpose of the book. But that's kind of a summary of the book, right? So what you said about Islam giving too much power to human beings, do you refer to that by what the Prophet Muhammad saw? No, what I'm saying is not about what the Prophet Muhammad saw at all. It's nothing to do with the Prophet Muhammad. It's the way it puts the power of justice into human hands. Like if you look at the Muslim countries, you have humans enacting the judgment, right? You have the laws, you have corporal and capital punishment, right? And it really follows the eye for an eye, the tooth for the tooth thing. And the same criticism could go against Old Testament Christianity, right? And what I mean by that is that, well, it's very easy for us to give too much power to humans. And that's something that we have to be very careful in doing. When you give too much power to humans, things go bad really, really quickly. And currently, I'm working on something called Zarathustra contra Alyosha, where I'm talking about the will to power, the death of God, basically Nietzsche and Dostoevsky, a summary of their two arguments and how they kind of merge together and how they kind of attack or fight against each other, right? And essentially, what I work towards, I come to the thesis that power is not the sole driving force of the universe. And I think that's one of the main problems of Islam as well. It's focused on the god of power and not a god of love. Because if you look, no, I have not read Dr. John Gray. I haven't read that work. I mean, I dare say my reading into these more current or more recent works has not been up to par at all, not as much as I would like to have known, because I guess I've just spent so much time thinking about Dostoevsky and Nietzsche that I've kind of overseen or not focused too much on the more current discussion of the issue, right? But I would say that I probably would get to read a bit more of the subjects in the future, I guess, if I have more time. Because I mean, I'm not going to say I'm a really extremely busy guy, but I have quite a lot of stuff on my hands, and sometimes I just do stuff and it gets a bit out of hand, right? Like, I mean, I have doing quite a lot of, and I'm not complaining about it, but I do quite a lot of stuff at school. I'm part of the orchestra, I'm part of a few football teams and stuff like that. So I barely have too much time on my hands. And yeah, so I wouldn't say I'm too familiar with the most recent works of the critiques on humanism, but I'll say that if anyone wants to debate me on it, I know enough about the subject in general to discuss it. But yeah, I mean, going back to the Muslim thing, right? I mean, I think if you talk about the Muslim thing, it's a very interesting thing because, and it's a distinction that I read somewhere before. I don't exactly know where I read it from. It said, Christianity is a religion of love. Judaism is a religion of facts, and Islam is a religion of power. And I never really understood it too much, but I think if we look at the world around us today, you do see it quite clearly. Islam is a religion of warfare and power, and I'm not saying, okay, and I'm not arguing from 9/11 and things like that, but I do think there's a good case to be made that Islam is indeed a religion of what do you call it? Is indeed a religion of power, right? And it's just that, like, I would say that power in itself is not bad, right? Like, power in itself is not bad, and knowledge in itself is not bad, and love in itself is not bad, right? But when you compare them together, and because I argue that at the heart of human existence, there's a thing called the will to good. We need to ask, well, what is closest to this will to good? Is it Islam? Is it Christianity, or is it Judaism? And my hypothesis is Christianity is closest to the will to good when compared with all the other ideas or the other hypotheses, right? And that's essentially what I'm doing with this dialogue called Zarathustra contra Alyosha. I might actually share the screen with you because I haven't finished it right now, but I mean, why not, right? Like, it's up there anyway, so why not? Okay, so it's basically, oh my gosh. Okay, sign in, next. Okay, so essentially we have this poem here, and then we have the slave morality, and then we have the death of God, and then we have the will to power contra the will to good, and it's something which really caught, and it's something that the will to power, the will to good, and especially the discussion on what do you call it? On the discussion on the Übermensch really changed my mind recently, right? And okay, I was reading the comments. But essentially what I'm saying is that it's very easy for us to dismiss the idea of the Übermensch. But I don't necessarily think it is right to dismiss the idea of the Übermensch, because there's a very true thing about the Übermensch, and I think Nietzsche's idea of the Übermensch is, how do I say it? It's really profound in the sense that he's right in saying that society is flawed. he's right in saying that slave morality is a very big problem and that the herd is suffocating the intellectuals, feeding off the intellectuals, and as a result of this feeding off the intellectuals, you basically have what do you call it? You have the herd picking off or feeding off the intellectuals, right? And when that happens, the intellectuals get attacked, the intellectuals get dragged down, and then the herd rules. And what happens when the herd rules, you ask yourself? Well, humans can't develop when the herd is ruling, right? The herd cannot, the herd will suffocate itself, the herd will destroy itself. But at the same time, you need the Ubermensch to control the herd, because the herd is important in society. It's why in every social structure, the bottom class is always the largest one. And that's because the herd drives society, and we need the intellectuals. And that's the need of the Ubermensch, to rise above the herd mentality that we see so often in this world around us. Because just look around us. I mean, regardless, whoever you are, you're a Christian, Muslim, whoever you are, look at society, you realize how far we've fallen and how high these liberal extremist ideas come up, like socialism, communism, things like that. And these things just are very detrimental to society, because the problem with socialism isn't that all people are equal is a bad idea. That's definitely not the true problem with socialism. The true problem with socialism is that the herd rules. When the herd rules, then it suffocates intellect. And that's the true problem with socialism, right? And okay, I'll answer your question before I answer the computer theist question, because it's just simple. I'm currently 17 years old. I just became 17 last December. And I've heard it a lot, right? Like, people say I'm a really intelligent guy. I dare say it's more of my show than really the stuff I know. Maybe it's the stuff I know as well, but I definitely do present myself. And I'm not saying I'm really good at presenting myself either, but I dare say that my presenting skills, and this is a tip in life in general, if you sound more confident, you talk slower at times, you change your tone at different times, you use your hand gestures in a good way, you sound smarter than you actually are. And it's just kind of the way things work. It's the way psychology works, right? Like if I was on the stream fidgeting with my hands, feeling very nervous, the moment someone asks a question, I freeze and then never answer, or just answer really quickly, then you sound not really smart, right? But if you take your time, use hand gestures, really be relaxed no matter whatever questions come at your way, at least you sound smarter, right? And that's something I sometimes do with people when I'm discussing something I have absolutely no knowledge about. When I have a debate, I recently had a debate about economics, and I'm like, what is economics? I absolutely know nothing about it, right? But I had to do the debate, so I just relaxed, talk slower, use hand gestures, use confidence, and it made myself sound way smarter than I actually was, and way more knowledgeable than I actually was. So that's just a quick observation about how to sound smarter than you actually are. I should change this stream to calling 12 Rules for Life, Joshua's Guide, and an Antidote to Socialism. But that's beyond the point. I do like Jordan B. Peterson, but essentially, oh really? He defends socialism. Okay, I'll check it out, definitely. I'll see how it goes, because I do think that's if he's an atheist, I do think that socialism it sounds like a good idea, you know. Socialism sounds all good in theory. But the only problem with socialism and the only problem with communism is that it gives too much power to the herd. And that's the only critique that I have of it. Because equality is a very just or a really good thing to do, right? It's very easy to say equality, equality, equality. And who on earth does not think that equality is a good thing to do? The question is, how do you implement equality? And that's something else I'm working on. I'm discussing what is the problem of equality? Because it's very easy to say equality is a good thing. But what type of equality are you saying is a good thing? Equality of treatment? That's dreadful. No one should be treated equally. The guy who works his ass off to put food on his table, the guy who sacrifices his life for his comrades, that guy should be treated with more respect than someone who's just being lazy, sleeping on the couch all day, not working at all. If you see what I mean, you have to have some sense of equality of treatment for everyone. And you have to have a completely meritocratic system. And that's, I think, the ideal of socialism at times. But then that's never truly achieved, because there's always going to be someone leading. And unless the person who's leading really has the good of the people at heart, you never have that happen, right? So that's a bit of a problem with socialism, right? And I'll definitely check out his works a bit more. So I'll actually go through to this guy first. Okay, the belief of Sharia law in Islam isn't that it's implemented by human beings, but was that the Prophet Muhammad received it from God. Yes, and I think that's a problem of the entire thing, right? And I think that's essentially why I'm saying it gives too much power to humans. You see here, you see God giving... Actually, let me make a very clear comparison here, and I'm sorry if any Roman Catholics are listening to it, but I think Islam, the institution of the Sharia law, is very similar to the Catholic Church in the sense that, well, God in Catholicism gave the keys of the kingdom to Peter, that the gates of Hades would not overcome it. And it took it to mean that God gave the kingdom of heaven to humans, and hence the infallibility or the inerrancy of the Catholic Church, right? And with the papacy, and then you see that, and you're like, well, that's wrong. And that's my fundamental critique of Catholicism. And it's the same critique I use against Islam. That's the idea. It gives too much power to human beings, because God should not be giving judgment for humans to carry out. God gives us the rules, and then we follow it, and God judges us. And that's why I think the conscience is such an important thing. And it's something that Dostoevsky talks about in Crime and Punishment. And although I dare admit that Crime and Punishment isn't the biggest book that I'm familiar with, right? I'm most familiar with the brothers Karamazov and The Idiot. But basically, Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment, he kills someone, commits a perfect murder, but then he commits a perfect murder, convinces himself that murdering the guy is actually all right, there's nothing wrong with it, but then he feels very guilty about it after he killed. After he logically convinced himself that killing someone, or at least killing the person he killed, is not morally wrong, he still feels really guilty about it. And I think that's the judgment of God. And there's something in the, what do you call it, in The House of the Dead that Dostoevsky writes, and it says, what hurts a prisoner the most is not the physical pain he's going through, it's not the prison sentence, but his eternal guilt. And that's what's so frightening of prison sentence, right? That's what's so punishing about it. You're stuck in jail with nothing to do, and the only thing you can think about is your guilt. And with that in mind, that's why a lot of people turn to Christ. They turn to redemption in jail. Why? Because they're faced with their guilt so much in jail. They have nothing else to think about but the fact that they murdered someone. They're like, well, why am I here? Why am I wasting my time in jail? Why am I locked up in this cell? And the answer they realize is because I am a horrible human being. And man cannot live by these standards. They can't live day in, day out, knowing that they're a horrible human, with their psyche, their own conscience tormenting them. And that's why people turn to Christ. And I'm not saying that's why God exists, definitely not. But what I'm saying is that's why people turn to redemption. That's why people turn to salvation. It's because they realize that they are truly horrible human beings. And I think that leads us to the question, well, why am I a Christian? Okay, that's wrong. Things put on the stage. It says, why am I a Christian? Well, there's something that Dostoevsky says, and it says, well, there is nothing so pure, so beautiful, so profound, so lovely as Christ. And if Christ was apart from the truth, and that someone truly proved to me that Christ was indeed apart from the truth, then I would choose to be part with Christ than to be with truth. And you might look at that and say, well, why the hell is Dostoevsky saying that the Christ is more important from the truth? And And at face value, you say that he's wrong, but I think deep down he is right. And why do I say that? Have I gone completely insane and have I completely forsaken the truth? Definitely not. What I think Dostoevsky is saying here is that Christ, unlike all the other religions in this world, provides meaning and provides beauty that is not found anywhere else in this world, in this existence. And of course, his Christ and the truth dichotomy is more of a discussion of religion in general against atheism. And I will elaborate that in a later video because I don't want to discuss that too much here, unless you do want me to discuss this for the rest of the video here. Then you could let me know in the comment section. Oh yeah, by the way, hi Jesus Love for All. He's also, for the guys watching, check out his channel. He's a great guy. Check out his channel. Give him a few subscriptions. He just started off, but essentially, okay, let me go back. Well, I think the reason why I picked Christianity over other religions is of the beauty of Christ and the resurrection, and less so the historical resurrection, right? But instead the historic resurrection. This is the Karl Barth's idea of the historic Jesus instead of the historical Jesus. And of course, I think that they are indeed the same, because I do think there's good reason to believe the New Testament writers are indeed the same. That Christianity and what do you call it? That the Bible, the gospel accounts, the accounts of the Bible are as well or as good as any of the other accounts. But the truth of the matter is, and I think that, okay, I think my Wi-Fi might be a bit bad, but hopefully it works. Hopefully it's all right. I have my Ethernet cable stuck in, so it should be all right. It should get well in a bit, but essentially what I'm trying to say is that the reason why I choose Christianity over other religions is, number one, because it is very beautiful. It's more perfect than anything else that I've ever seen or followed. Number two, the reason why I chose Christianity than anything else is because I'm convinced that Jesus did die for us and resurrected, right? Because it is the truth. Not only is it the most beautiful thing, it also is the most true thing. And what do I mean by Christianity being more good? Well, I would say, when I say Christianity being more good, it's good in the sense that it is beautiful. But just think about it. In no situation, in no area in life, have you ever seen a king laying his life down for a fraudulent peasant? Nowhere in the history of the world, in the history of narrative, have you ever seen such a scenario. Right? And ask yourself this. It's very easy for us to say. Jesus' resurrection, Jesus' crucifixion, Jesus dying for us means little to nothing. And it's very easy to say that, because it's very easy to just say, well, Christianity is this random, small, little thing about this random people far, far out in the middle of nowhere. In the middle of Judea, some random guy died for us. That's it. But that is not what Christianity is. And even if it was entirely a myth, let's admit for a moment that Christianity itself was not true. Let's think about that. And admit's not the right word, but let's think about it. Let's imagine that Christianity is completely not true and completely false. Well, still, you'll never find anything as beautiful as the creator of the entire universe coming down to earth to die for us. You'll never find that anywhere else in literature. And that's what I mean by saying Christianity being more good. It is indeed the most beautiful, most profound, most lovely, and most pure thing that I've ever seen in my life. And I've read quite a lot of literature, okay? Apart from me reading Dostoevsky and Nietzsche and doing philosophy, I always started off as a literature guy. Lewis, Tolkien, all these other people. And despite reading all of these things, Shakespeare, despite reading all of these things, I've never found anything as beautiful as Christianity. And yeah, I am part of the Apologetics youth empire. Yeah. And just here, quick shout out to the guys, Invoking Theism, Tim, great YouTuber, great guy. There's also Christian Idealism, Cal Alander, great guy as well. Go check him out. And of course, Zach, go check Zach out. Great, amazing guy. He's He's essentially why the channel grew a lot, you know? Absolutely amazing guy. I was around 100 subscribers when he found the channel, boosted up to 178 now. Of course, there's some random people coming in, but me going on the channel quite a lot. Great relationship with him, great guy. Make sure you check out Zach's channel. It's absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, go check out the other people in the Apologetics Youth Empire. I would say, out of all of them, the least expertise guy in philosophy of religion, in the sense that I don't, like, if you want metaphysics or things like that, go check out Tim. He's really good. We just did a live stream with him on the argument from limits. Go check him out. Go check Zach out for discussion reviews and stuff, or discussions with people, right? And I'm just kind of the guy in the Youth Apologetics Empire who makes reviews of stuff, reviews different debates, which goes on people's channels, talk about stuff and talk about Dostoevsky. That's essentially what I'm trying to do with this channel. You know, it's called Apologetics for All. It's meant to be indeed the most simple arguments or the most simple discussion about Christianity. And I don't want to go into the too crazy arguments or the crazy difficult discussions. It's meant to be for the most simple people, the everyday person. This is the channel, and that's what I kind of want to do with this channel. So I mean, I don't want to plug myself too much here, but if you think this could actually help anyone, like this channel or my book, help anyone come to Christ or strengthen their walk with God and not need to worry about, oh, this philosophy is really difficult, then just share the channel with them. I mean, or share the book with them. Because at the end of the day, I'm not trying to make this a very complicated argument. I mean, sometimes I do go into absolutely crazy stuff, and I sometimes go on massive philosophical tangents, right? But I try my best not to on most of my videos or my shorter videos. Verse of the day is essentially a quick summary of verses, Bible verses, and discussions. It's basically a daily devotional kind of thing that I want to do on my channel. So if you're interested in that, make sure you go check it out and spread the thing to the people around you. You know, it doesn't really matter to me like how many subscribers I get. I never did this for the subscriptions or anything like that. It's mainly just to help you guys out, right? Like, I have a Discord server if you want to join it. Just let me know whatever you want to see on the channel, whatever is most helpful for you. Just let me know, and I'll do it. You know, as long as it's possible, I'll happily make videos for you, no matter what topic it is, right? Like, if you want me to do some of my gaming streams again, let me know. I'll stream some of my gaming a bit. If you want me to talk more philosophy, more Dostoevsky, let me know. I'll probably do 2 Dostoevsky videos if you want me to do that. If you want me to do more debate reviews, let me know in the Discord server I have. I'll show you the Discord server right now. I think I actually can do that, right? I'll share the Discord server, share Chrome tab, Discord. I'll respond to the choosing Christianity thing later. But essentially, you can see this is the Discord server. There's a moderator only. Then there's a content creators, which is obviously only for content creators. But here you have the welcoming and rules. You have the spread the server, so you can share it with any of your friends. You have new peeps. The new people joined. There's a few people joined today. There is the recent uploads of me, Dr. Craig, Zach, basically the people at the Youth Apologetics Empire. There is video requests. So you can let me know whatever you want me to do, and I'll announce whenever I'm streaming and stuff like that. Feedback, let me know how you want my videos to improve. Video updates is when I'm just letting you know about stuff. Community hub is just discussing with people. Then there's also all these arguments for the existence of God if you want to talk about literature here, I could add Shakespeare. Because there's actually something very insightful about Shakespeare, you know, recently. But I was discussing with my friend Warren, right? So there's Shakespeare, then there's testimonies and stuff like that. So that's basically the Discord server. So it's basically anything you want to reach out to me, just let me know there, okay? So you say, well, how you perceive good morals. Well, I would say that's wrong, you know, because of course we all do things or everything's based on our perception of good morals. But then the argument could work for literally everything, right? And what I see here, and I think I don't want to misrepresent you here, but I think your critique might be, well, you're saying that. I think you're saying that perhaps what I'm saying is that Christ's moral is a good moral. But I think that in any situation, Christianity is a good moral, apart from unless you're looking at from a Nietzschean perspective, when Christianity would really not be a good moral. But even on Muslim in Islam, Jesus did do good morals, right? Jesus was a prophet in Islam. So I don't think that and what I'm saying here is that good morals is very different from beauty. They're two very different things. It's one thing to say that something is good morals, and it's another thing to say, well, that thing's beautiful. Because there's things in the Bible which is good morals, and there are things which are good morals, and I'll tell you that, but it's not beautiful. And things of that are like some of the discussions that we have to go through in the book, like, well, discussions about morality. Like, is homosexuality right? Is the gender phenomena right? And all these different things, right? It's very easy for us to say. It's very easy for us to say here, well, these things are very ugly, but they're still good morals. And someone from Islam or someone from Judaism would also agree that it's good morals, but might not agree and would agree with me that it's not very beautiful. But at the same time, there's also a sphere which is, there is beauty in this world, right? And there's some sense of objective beauty. And like anyone who says the story of Christ is not beautiful, I have to really have some severe reservations about your sense of beauty. But because the theme of self-sacrifice and love, and perhaps beauty isn't the best word to put it or the best representation of what I mean by beauty, but I'd like to raise this as a challenge to anyone. Well, and the challenge is this. Find me an example of love and sacrifice and forgiveness which is greater than the sacrifice that Jesus has done on the cross. And I think it's in that sense that we could really form an objective standard upon why I say that Christ is indeed the most beautiful thing, or is the goodest thing, closest to the good. And it's nothing about how I perceive good morals, because I think we could all agree here that to love and to sacrifice are good things. And I wouldn't say it's solely perception-wise, if you got what I mean. It's not about how you perceive good morals, because otherwise that will work for Islam. Well, you chose Islam because you chose it solely based on how you perceive good morals. Well, the idea of how you perceive good morals, you first have to establish, is there an objective good morals? And if we establish that there is, and of course you could go the Nietzschean route and say, well, there is no good morals. Then upon that, then everything kind of gets defeated, because then you're discussing about absolute morals. And actually you get to the question whether is atheism true or theism true. So what I'm trying to say here is that my choice of Christianity is more about an objective sense of morals, or indeed not even just an objective sense of morals, but an objective sense of beauty, which is love and forgiveness and love and sacrifice. And that's really what I'm trying to get at here, if you got what I mean. And my aircon doesn't work anymore. Oh my gosh, this is absolutely dreadful. Turn up fan speed. Hopefully this works. It's absolutely boiling here. It's absolutely horrendous. Now you could probably hear the fan in the background, but that's a good thing, so I don't burn alive right now. So, any more questions, let me know. I will be happy to answer them. And time passes really quickly when I'm doing these streams. It's like 53 minutes already. It feels so short. It feels so short, It feels absolutely so short. So let me actually it says my Wi-Fi is bad, but I never know how bad the Wi-Fi is unless I check it out on my channel, right? So let me actually it says I definitely agree with it. Most people do choose Christianity based on I do agree that most people come to it because of its beauty, but stay because of its evidence. Although I would also say that some people do just stay with Christianity for its beauty. And I probably shouldn't be making these proclamations out loud, because I think some atheists might jump on the wagon and try to burn me alive for this, right? But at the same time, I do think I'm kind of justified in saying this, in the sense that I probably would stay with Christianity for its beauty. What time on Hong Kong time are you active on Discord? I'm basically on the entire day. I just have it on the entire day, and my schedule changes a lot, right? So I'll have it on the entire day if someone just wants to talk or something like that, or just send me something. I'll check if I have free time. I'll just chat to them or just text them. actually, I'm always free for a text. I might not be free for chatting, but I'm mostly free for texting on Discord, yeah. But essentially, I would say that the amount of evidence which will require me to drop Christianity, now that I've read Dostoevsky, is very high, I would say. And I would say also that I'm completely convinced that God does exist from arguments. And I do think you could demonstrate that God exists. I'm not saying that we should completely forget about these arguments. Definitely not. What I am saying, however, at the same time, is that Christianity being true is so important for life that even if there was really powerful argument against it, it would be better to stay with Christianity than just leave it over a few arguments. And that's essentially what I'm saying, and I wouldn't mind defending this or elaborating it a bit more. And I haven't thought through this too much, but I do think there's something right about Dostoevsky's statement, and I do think there's something right about it here, definitely. And I wouldn't disagree. And I find it very hard for anyone to object to it if you actually look at the literature and you say, well, and if you really sincerely ask yourself, if God doesn't exist or if Christ doesn't exist, what is? And most people say, well, of course we could create our own meaning, we could create these things, left, right, and center, but that's not the problem, right? That's fundamentally not what Dostoevsky is saying, or that's essentially, they haven't gone deep enough, I don't think, into the problem of a godless universe. And trust me, I'm not just a Christian trying to evangelize by saying this, right? Like I've struggled a lot, even as a Christian, with really difficult stuff in my life too, and a lot of parts of my Christian walk has been struggle and suffering, right? I mean, I wouldn't say my discussion on existentialism and philosophy or my discussion into religion is some random mere discussion or some mere thoughts, right? Like fundamentally, my discussion here is indeed a result of a lot of suffering and pain, and the reason why I've become a Christian is because there's so much beauty that despite the pain, I realize that there's nothing more beautiful than the solution here. And I know I've been going on this for really long, and I'm really sorry about it, but I hope you understand, right? Like it's kind of something which feels or resonates a lot with me. And young Earth vs. old Earth creationists. I haven't studied the discussion enough. I don't want to pick a side here, but I would say that there has been decent arguments for both sides, and I wouldn't say I'm either one or another. I do think that the Genesis story is a bit more than a metaphorical account. That's for sure. I would say 100% for sure that young Earth creation versus old Earth creation, it's way more complicated than to just say, well, science says this and therefore it's wrong. I do think it's way more than just a metaphor. But at the same time, I have not seen sufficient evidence to support a young Earth creation view. And the overwhelming evidence does seem to point towards an old Earth creation stance. And I wouldn't say that I'm an expert in this, and I'm definitely not the best person to go to. Like, I'm absolutely not the best person to go to this. But I would say there's good reasons to believe in everything, and the best thing to do is remain agnostic, and that's why I am. I just don't know enough about it. But okay, so, and I'm sorry it's not a really helpful answer, right? Like I'm not going to say it's a good answer at all. I wouldn't say that, but that's the best I can say. I think it's just give my thoughts, and yeah, that's kind of the answer, the idea. So what denomination of Christianity are you for? I try to stay as non-denominational as possible, because I think once you get into a denomination, then you feel that you have to follow the party line. Like if you're a Catholic, you feel that you have to support the infallibility of the Pope, if you get what I mean, right? Like you can't do otherwise. And that's a problem for me, right? Like I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, I've grown up I have been in a Baptist church for a long time, right? But at the same time, well, am I truly a Baptist? I wouldn't agree with everything the Baptist church says. And at the same time, I wouldn't agree with what a lot of things say, right? Like, and I have to admit here that my faith is going on a significant change, and also my philosophy as well. It's upon reading Dostoevsky that really changed my life, and it really changed my approach to the world. And I would say 100% with 100% certainty that you should read Dostoevsky if you are mentally fit to do so. And when I mean mentally fit to do so, I'm not saying when you're smart enough to do so. What I'm saying, well, when you're mentally fit to do so, is when you're not suffering from any bad thing like depression or something like that. Then, and if you are suffering from depression, please do not read Dostoevsky. It will be a very difficult problem, right? And that mistake a bit myself as well. Like, I wasn't in the best state of mind when I started reading The Idiot, the first Dostoevsky book that I read. And I wouldn't say that it was that bad because the love. But actually, I would say that if you want to risk it, right? If you are indeed feeling really, really down and nothing is helping you, maybe you should read Dostoevsky. And yes, reading Dostoevsky is very depressing, and it is dark at times. But if you read The Idiot, and I'm not saying read Brothers Karamazov, because that's really dark, but really beautiful at the same time. But I would say that The Idiot is where you should start off with if you're really sad and you really want some hope. And to warn you here, The Idiot is really dark as well. There's kids dying from tuberculosis. There's kids dying from consumption. There's a kid who tries to kill himself and fails. Like, there's literally a kid who goes out after a dinner party, and he literally says to everyone, gives a massive speech about how he wants to kill himself, and then goes out and tries to shoot himself. And guess what happens? He forgets to load his gun. So everyone knows he tried to kill himself, but he failed in killing himself. That's how depressed and messed up the story is. And then after that, he dies a bit later, right? And you think about it and you're like, well, why is Dostoevsky still a Christian? And that's why I think the strength of the theodicy of love is that God's love, Christ's love, is so much beautiful and so great that it overwhelms all the suffering. And upon realizing that truth in your life, it really transforms something within you, right? Really changes something. And that's what I love so much about Dostoevsky. And that's something which means a lot to me, you know? And it's something that I need to think about more and more and more. Something that I really need to elaborate and establish more. But I think it is a sufficient place to start. I think it is a good starting point. I mean, it's very important. And what is my opinion on universalism? The belief that all are saved. Completely disagree with it. Not everyone is saved. Hell is a very real phenomena. And people will go to hell, you know. It's not something very easy to think about. But then at the same time, it's a really interesting issue, the problem of hell and the problem of suffering. Because you know how a lot of atheists, they like to say, God commanded execution for a lot of people. God commanded people to die. God destroyed cities. And you say that's bad. Well, let me flip the question around. What do we deserve? And this is an argument that my friend raised. Is that why does God let us live? What have we done to deserve life? And the answer is, sadly enough, absolutely nothing. All we've done coming into this world is fallen short of the glory of God and have sinned. That's the only thing humans have done. Yes, we've done some good in our world, but that has not been enough to justify any one of us going to heaven at all. None of us are perfect, and we've fallen significantly short. And don't fool yourself by saying, well, I'm good enough to get myself to heaven. Just ask yourself deep down. The Lord judges the heart. Ask yourself deep down, and do you not see a monster? Do you not see the abyss staring back at you? And that's something Nietzsche says, and I think Beyond Good and Evil, he says, he who fights a monster should be careful lest he becomes one. You stare into that abyss, and you'll see the abyss staring back at you. I have this question for you, and everyone, look at yourself. Ask yourself, how perfect are you, and do you deserve salvation? And I think fundamentally, you'll soon realize that you don't deserve salvation, that deep down in your heart, you know that all of us deserve to go to hell, and we all deserve to die. And with that in mind, should not the question be, why are we still alive, and not why did God destroy some people? And that's an interesting question. You flip the argument around. And that, I think, is the solution. And how does this tie into universalism? Well, I think it ties into universalism because none of us deserve to go to heaven, and it's the love of Christ. And it's a free gift of Christ that we have to accept. And that we are all saved as long as we believe and love God and truly follow him. Not as a false Christian, but as a true Christian, loving God and trying to follow him. And that is essentially why I build it in my book, right? And I'm not getting you to buy it or anything like that. It doesn't really matter too much to me whether you buy it or not. Of course, it would be great if you buy it. But the most important thing is you get your life on track. And that's not by saying getting your life perfect, because no one's ever going to be perfect. Don't deceive yourself and say, my goal is to be perfect. Love God. Love God. Love your enemies. Focus on the love of God and the beauty of God around us, right? And when you do that, you will move towards Christianity. You will move towards Christ. And I dare say I do discuss some of that in my book, Christianity for All. It's definitely not an as insightful guide as the stuff I've discussed today, nor have I discussed it that profoundly. Though if you want me to do, I'm thinking actually about providing or what do you call it? Publishing another book called The Beauty of Dostoevsky and Nietzsche, where I will basically be going over what I've said today in this stream in a dialogue, like Plato, like Hume. And it's a thing I was alluding to just now. It's two people discussing the will to power, the will to good, the death of God, the slave morality. And I discuss those things, right? And I also discussed the beauty of Dostoevsky with my friend, Warren. He could write the foreword or the introduction to it. And I'm completely up to doing that. Completely up to that idea. Because I think it might help a lot. If you enjoyed what I've talked about in this book and in this live stream, I think it would really help you to understand or help you understand or realize the need for God. And more especially the beauty of God. And that's something that I like to focus on, you know. It goes back to why I am a Christian. Yeah, it's the arguments. Yeah, it's the logic. It's the reasoning. I do think they point to Christianity. I definitely do think they point to Christianity, and I can make a strong argument for them. And I can do that, and I will do that if needed. But what has changed my life the most was not the arguments. You come to God, but what changed my life the most was beauty and love and forgiveness and realizing that you're so depraved, that you don't deserve absolutely anything. And that is when you truly commit yourself to God and you know, well, what have I ever done to deserve this? In the sense that, and a lot of people say, well, what have I ever done to deserve this when they're talking about, you know, what have I done to deserve this evil? No, what I mean is, what have I done to deserve this life? And that's the real question you must ask. What have I done to deserve this life? And I might just stay here for a bit longer, but See how that goes. If you want, I could play a bit of cello for you or something like that. I don't know. If you have any more questions, let me know. I'll happily answer to them. Is this the first live stream that you've been in? Jesus' love for all. I haven't seen you in that many of my chats recently because I think I do them in the morning way too often. What do I think about once saved, always saved? Well, I would say that I'll say that once saved, always saved is, I'll say it's quite true in the sense that people who truly recognize or people who realized the love of God and truly admitted Christ into their hearts would not leave it. I'll agree with that. Now the question is, and the true problem at the heart of the issue is not the idea of once saved, always saved. The true question is, what does once saved mean? Excuse me, because once saved does not mean you have a baptism and it's all well and good. Once saved means you commit your life to Christ and you're willing to die for God. And you might say, well, I'm being melodramatic. Death does not only mean you're going to get martyred or you're going to get killed. Death is indeed a very real phenomenon and something that we go through every single day, right? We face opposition, we face persecution. And a lot of people like saying, oh, we're trying to free people from religion, we're trying to free people from, give me a break, man. And it might just be my school. Might be the fact that I'm completely surrounded mostly by atheists and secular people. And that my views are constantly in attack, in conflict with what other people are saying. And that might be one thing. The truth is that when you commit your life to Christ, and I've only done that a year ago, or I'll say I've truly focused on God only around a year ago, and I don't think I'd ever leave it again. And I know I'm not being very clear here. Completely get it. I'm not being very clear here at all. But at the same time, I think what's so true about this is the same as what Dostoevsky says, that Christ is so perfect that you'll choose Christ over the truth. And that's not in an anti-truth kind of way, but more in the sense of, well, if God doesn't exist, then what's the meaning of truth? Why follow the truth if it's completely meaningless? And that is indeed the fundamental question of, well, why do we follow the truth? Or even, well, should we follow the truth? And I think that's my answer to once saved, always saved. Yes, I believe it's true. It also depends on what does once saved mean. And it's very easy to say this guy was saved and then stopped being a Christian. But then most of the times, if you really inspect his life and judge him, and not judge him in a bad way, but really delve into it, you would soon realize that those who have left Christ haven't really committed themselves to Christ at all in the first place. And it's very easy to just say, oh, I'm going to commit myself to God. That's a very easy thing to say. It's not a really easy thing to do, if you got what I mean. So I hope that helps. Let me know if you want me to ask any more questions. Let me clear my throat for a bit. Okay, I'm back. Just had to clear my throat for a bit there. It should be all good now. Oh well, yeah. So, Just let me know if you have any more questions. Also just let me know a bit more about you guys, like what football teams you support. I'm a Chelsea fan if you haven't gathered that already, but yeah, just let me know about anything. Ask more about me, let me know about anything you want, anything you're interested in. Yeah, cello. Let me give me a moment here. Okay, so I don't. Give me a moment. So to be honest, I don't know how this mic's gonna pick things up, you know. And I'm gonna play a song called by Ennio Morricone, and I'm gonna play the one that's actually already on the channel, you know, cause how did you switch from a Chelsea guy to a Man U Arsenal? Bloody hell! Oh well, that's a bit of a problem, isn't it? Oh well, it's fine. So essentially, the song that I'm going to be playing is called "Love Theme" from Cinema Paradiso. It's on my channel, and it's surprisingly the most watched video on my channel. Like the most watched video on the Christian channel is a cello video, and it's not. What do you call it? It's not a Christian video. It's actually quite funny in the sense that the most watched video is my cello one. Give me a moment. Let me check how the sound comes out. Okay, the sound seems pretty good. So let me do a bit of cello playing. Haven't played this song in ages, so let me see. Okay. I've been learning for maybe 5. How long have I been learning? 6, 7 years already, something like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit out of practice, to be honest, with that song. I'm playing off memory, but I kind of forgot how some of the bits were going, so I was improvising most of it. I mean, I'd love to play you Once Upon a Time in the West, but actually, you know what? I'll play you the first verse of it, and after that, I'll just leave the rest for the video and I actually get it out. I haven't recorded it yet. I'm an absolutely dreadful human being. I've said I'm going to do it ever since I produced the first video, but I never got around doing it. So I'll get around doing that sometime. Yeah, so essentially, oh my gosh. But essentially the reason I'll probably get the sound quality a bit better for the actual thing, but I'll put the cello back. And you can ask me any more questions. I'll probably go off in a bit, go to do some stuff before the Chelsea match tonight at midnight. Hard being a Chelsea fan when you're in Hong Kong, it takes ages. You wake up at 4 in the morning, you wake up at 3, you wake up at midnight. I'm probably not going to sleep too much tonight, to be honest. I'll watch the match, and then after that I will be, going to sleep, and I have school tomorrow. But, that's how things go. You're a Chelsea fan, you love it. Chelsea till I die. So, any more questions? Feel free to let me know. I will discuss anything more. Maybe I'll do 1 or 2 more questions for 1.5 hours this stream. Pretty good stream. Glad you can all be here, It's been a really great pleasure. It's been really nice to have you here. So, yeah, just make sure to check out the book if you think it might be helpful. It's for around like $8 and I think $3 for Kindle, or free if you have Kindle Unlimited. Make sure you go check it out. It's an interesting, it's a fun book. So yeah, it's a great one. What football club would the 12 disciples be in? Okay, I think Judas would probably be in Arsenal. They seem to get all the... Well, actually, Judas would either be in Arsenal or Spurs. They seem to get all the guys to turn sides. Willian, all the people, they all went from Chelsea to Arsenal, and then Jose went from Chelsea to Spurs. And who... I would say John would be Chelsea, because Chelsea just kind of gives points to the weaker teams and just takes points from the good team. So it's kind of the Robin Hood kind of team. It's a charity FC. It does well against good teams, but sometimes does a bit dodgy against teams which need help. And then there's Luke, the doctor. Well, I would say that Luke's probably in... Luke might be in Man City, because Man City is very clinical, right? They're very precise. They pass the ball really well under Pep Guardiola. So I think Luke would be really good in that fit. And okay. And then there would be Peter, right? The Rock. Not Dwayne Johnson, but The Rock, right? And basically, I think Peter would be in Liverpool, because Liverpool's all about passion under Jurgen Klopp, right? it's about fighting for the ball, fighting, high press, high pressure. And that's why they get injured so much this season, because their bodies couldn't cope with the pressure and the strains of it. Of course, Van Dijk got completely destroyed by Pickford, but apart from that, you do see a bit of an issue there. So then you have Andrew, James, okay, Thomas. Thomas is the doubting guy. I think Thomas would be Aston Villa because Thomas is kind of like, you don't really know. Aston Villa or West Ham, I think. They're quite a decent team, especially our Aston Villa this year. They're a pretty decent team, but at the same time, you doubt them. You wouldn't believe until you see it, right? Like if someone told you Aston Villa got like 13-odd clean sheets with Emi Martinez, you'd be like, no way on earth. But then you've seen it and you're like, well, yes way on earth. And in that sense, Thomas would be like that, right? He would be the kind of guy who goes, well, I need to see Jesus. And he did see Jesus. And he was like, yes, that is indeed quite true. So you could see that Thomas would probably be Aston Villa. And then Matthew. Hard to say what Matthew would be, you know? I would say Matthew might be... I would say Matthew might be United because they're quite balanced, right? And of course, you have Bruno Fernandes, who is an amazing player, and he's of course not the balanced guy in the team, right? But actually, United isn't too. I mean, they're quite equally bad, but they manage to get along. They get along decently in the sense that, I mean, of course, I can't say much because they're currently higher up than us in the league table, right? But at the same time, they have significant areas for improvement. And they are quite a inconsistent team, and that was like Chelsea last year, where we were good at attack, but we were really bad in defense, right? Like we were conceding goals left, right, and center. So I'll say Matthew might be like United, good, but it's a bit of a mixed bunch, right? And yeah, I think that's basically most of the 12 disciples. I mean, the rest of them would be in the other random teams that you probably never heard of unless you actually watch the Premier League a lot, right? And that's basically it. I mean, I don't know enough about the football, but you know, that's kind of how I take it. So as a quick summary, I think Judas would be in Arsenal or Spurs. I think Peter would be Liverpool. Who else? Peter would be Liverpool. Matthew would be United. John would be Chelsea because of Charity FC, and Luke would be City. So that's kind of the answer to that question. So have a great one. It's getting a bit late. The stream's been on for 1.5 hours. That's quite a good thing to be on. My voice is dying, as you can see. It's dying on the moment. Been talking for 1.5 hours straight. Hopefully Chelsea win tonight. Come on, you Blues. Hope to see you soon. Stay safe. God bless. Like always, if you are interested in this book, make sure you go check it out. Christianity for All. It is currently for $7 US or $8 US for a paperback and $3 US for a Kindle edition, unless you have Kindle Unlimited. So have a great one. Stay safe. God bless. Hope to see you soon. Have a great one with family, friends, everything. Wish you all the best. And now 5 people start watching when I'm saying goodbye. But, well, it's fine. Hope you've enjoyed this stream. If you haven't watched the entire stream, make sure you go check it back out in the beginning. But without further ado, have a great one, and I'll see you in the next stream or the next video, which should be tomorrow. See you then, and goodbye.